Hi kids, today we're going to talk about project approaches. Now, before I get too far into it, I do want to show you that you should have a resource sheet that follows along with this information, either on paper, which I've handed to you or put back by the crates there, but this is also available in Canvas as a walkthrough, so do not feel like you have to write any of this down. I'm briefly going to go over the different kind of project approaches that are available to you in this class. Let's take a look here. First approach is the most common one, and it's the one I have the most experience with. It is an experiment. Students in this kind of project approach will design a scientific investigation that allows them to think about something that they want to find out, collect data on what they want to find out, and then analyze those results and show what is something new or something that's already known and help clarify it. Often this will include some statistical analysis, which I'm happy to walk you through. Don't worry, you don't have to be good at math. We do the statistics in the computer so that it spits it out at us. The good things about this kind of project is that it provides you a hands-on lab experience. So if you're one of those people that really likes hands-on stuff, you can do that. You get to develop your own protocol, you get to develop your own data, you get to develop your own hypotheses on what's happening in the data. And this is the kind of project approach that typically is seen highly in science fairs and competitions. Now, the problem with this is that you do have to sometimes have specialized equipment to do so. I've bought a bunch of equipment before and I'm willing to buy some more, but we got to know exactly what we need ahead of time. It can be limited when it comes to test subjects, and we'll explain test subjects as we get closer to another approach here. And it can be very time consuming, which means if you're one of the students that has like 3 sports and 10 different extracurricular activities, this might not be a very easy thing for you to do. It doesn't mean you can't do it. We always find workarounds, but to do an experiment that you feel proud of, you might need time. So if you're interested in like data analysis or lab science or just like all the labs that we've done in the 3 years up to now, this is a good approach to take. You could also go into this thinking, I want to design something new and employ the engineering design process where we not only figure out a problem, but brainstorm some different solutions, try a bunch of those solutions, whether it's a new device or an app or a physical tool, and variations of those different things, and actually test them out and show what happens in those tests. This is very creative, very hands-on. It's very good for these competitions because it produces some kind of tangible thing that people can look at and say, oh, I can see how that works. And it tends to be the ones that kind of get the scholarships, kind of like getting the new kind of Band-Aid that shows a change in color when there's an infection. Don't do that. It's been done to death. And this is great for students who are also interested in something like engineering and something like entrepreneurship, like having your own business, because you're actually going to take us through not only the testing of your product, but the marketing and business plan of your product if we have time to. The problem with this kind of activity, this kind of approach, is that it may require you to learn a new skill that is kind of tech savvy, maybe like coding if you're looking at an app. There are tons of different ways to make apps without really knowing the nitty-gritty of all coding. You might have to learn computer augmented design. If you're looking to like 3D print something, I have some experience with that, but not a lot. Prototyping, making things, being good with your hands. This is the kind of thing that while you can just ragtag your way through this project, you might be more happy and satisfied with this project if you're going to make something that is awesome, something that is above and beyond expectations of just being in this classroom and learning biomedical science. Testing things can also be very time consuming because you have to go through many, many tests. We don't want to just test it once and say, yay, it works. We want to test it over and over and over again to make sure that it does not work. You see what I'm saying? You want to do as many times as possible to make sure that it withstands repeated use and stuff. So this is really good if you're interested in side projects of yours, like building something or problem solving or in entrepreneurship or engineering, but this might not be good if you are not that skill savvy. This option is kind of a catch-all of a couple of different things that you can do with data that already exists or is easy to get. What we do in this one is we analyze and synthesize findings across multiple research studies, as in things that have already been published. And we kind of act like a investigative journalism and bring it together. That's what a systematic review is. It is reviewing a bunch of things that have already been produced. A meta-analysis does that, plus it has a component of statistics to it, meaning that you have numbers to back up your claim about what all of these other people are already claiming, are already reporting. Now, a survey study is very similar to kind of this and an experiment where you can do a project where you survey a bunch of people that have something in common and see if there is a commonality between them, some kind of consensus between them and the scientific literature that's available to us. This could be simple because you can make surveys that are based on other surveys that have been done and just kind of fine-tune to a specific group of people, but it also can be something that you bring your own questions to and do your own analysis of. The pros to this: there's no lab equipment needed. You're going to be sitting at a computer and connecting the dots kind of in your head or on the board or on the table. And it trains you to be able to think critically and kind of think about research as a design rather than a set in stone fact. And it contributes to this idea that medicine is evidence-based and we have to combine all the evidence to be able to make a recommendation of some kind. Furthermore, survey work specifically can really reach a large population and gather real-world perspectives that are different than what we might see from other groups of people that are gathered together. Like, say, you might have a bunch of people who have someone in their family with diabetes, but you go and survey everyone in the American Diabetes Association to see if that same thing holds true for the entire group. The cons is that this is very reading heavy. It is very, very grounded in literature, in surveys, in data. You're going to be taking a lot of stuff in all at the same time. And if you're not taking a lot of stuff in, maybe your topic isn't that big of a deal. Like if you have some specific rare disease, well, we might have to venture away from just one specific rare disease to a collection of diseases that would have more data for you. Really, really requires attention to detail, and you're going to have some times where you're going to have to include or exclude specific data depending on specific criteria that you kind of have to make the decision for. Additionally, when you're doing a survey, it can be very unpredictable what you actually get in return. So you kind of have to be open-minded to the potential outcomes of it. And you never know how many are going to come in at the same time, and if you're going to have to go and get more data from another group of some kind. And I got to tell you, it sounds easy to make a survey, but it might not necessarily be easier because we want to bring this up to the point where it's above the normal high school project, which means that we're going to try to get as many pieces of data as possible in your survey. We're not going to do these 16 people in my class report blank when blank happens. We're going to go out and get real data from a bunch of people, whether it's all 4 high schools or a group like the American Diabetes Association. We want to get data, lots of it, okay? This option is a very uncommon one, but I have seen a couple of specifics in this. This is a protocol or a system redesign where we see something in healthcare or biotechnology that works kind of okay, like an experiment procedure that works okay, or a set system in a emergency room that works kind of okay, and you design something to make it better. You propose a new and improved process in place of what already exists. So for example, if you notice that the local emergency department has things out of order and they're not easily accessible to their nurses and doctors that need them right away, maybe you could propose a redesign of that actual emergency room and like take it upon yourself to think about the procedure rather than the end result. This is really good if you're like really practical minded and real world oriented, and it's really rooted in like safety or efficiency or accessibility in healthcare. The problems with this is you're going to have to require a bunch of in-depth knowledge that might not be on paper specifically. You're going to have to research existing systems that exist. So you might have to go to that emergency room, or you might have to talk to people in the profession, or you might have to go through the protocol of an experiment yourself and see what can be manipulated about it. This is going to be very difficult for someone who is not willing to go the extra mile and talk to people in this field. And it kind of your success kind of depends on the accessibility of those experts. So we got to go digging pretty quickly with this one. But if you're interested in working in healthcare or in biotechnology or in the lab of some kind, then this could be a pretty good example of something that might work out okay, because not every single system is set in stone. Some have thought about producing some kind of healthcare event or outreach campaign where you have some kind of problem, whether it's not well known or there's not a lot of access to it in the community, and you produce and host this event and report on that instead. Common things would be like vaccine clinics or vaccine clinics or public service announcement campaigns and stuff like that. And this is really good if you want to do a public service that directly impacts your community and can be highly creative in what you want to do. But this also requires very significant planning and coordination. You have to be on top of what happens first, what happens second, what happens third, especially if it's an event, because you're in charge of the event itself. And the impact may be pretty hard to scientifically measure in the end of the day, and that's what we kind of have to report on. So you do have to have some kind of component of data to present at these competitions and stuff. But if you're interested in public health and education and marketing and social media and community engagement, this is a pretty good project to do. I haven't had anyone take me up on this offer, but I know there are some Eagle Scouts and Gold Award Girl Scouts that are interested in like putting together something that matters. So feel free to think about this one as a potential. One that is not often pursued because you guys just love hanging out with me so much is a job shadowing experience with a reflective product to it. And what I mean by that is not only do you shadow a professional in some biomedical field that you're interested in, such as shadowing a dentist or shadowing a veterinarian and stuff like that, but you have to be able to produce something from that experience that is reportable rather than I had a good time at the veterinarian, blah, blah, blah. So it needs to be something that is like substantial for you to be able to report on, either a report, an infographic, a blog, or even a proposal based on that occupation. An example of this is actually on the last page of your packet in the approaches resource sheet. Students spent time job shadowing at an MRI clinic where their father worked, and investigated how often people were experiencing claustrophobia inside the MRI machine, which is a big deal. And then she designed a balm, kind of like Vicks VapoRub, to rub on your chest here, that could create fumes and act as a depressant instead of a stimulus that would quell the fears of that person as they approach and get into the MRI machine. So this person not only did a job shadowing, but they did an invention of some kind and tested that invention. So this is very much an open-ended kind of approach that leans into the expert and allows you to work with the expert on something that you still feel passionate about, which is great because we all want real world career exposure and experience. We want to be able to have as much flexibility in these products as possible, but you have to be the one to A, find the mentor, and B, you have to think about the way that you can actually collect data in a very original way and in an environment that might not be so willing on you taking data, especially medical records, from patients. So consider that for sure. I've had one person in the past talk about a policy or ethics proposal, meaning that they explored a policy that was in place that a company, specifically the St. Charles County Ambulance District, had on record, and they wanted to propose action or reform to that policy. This could be about gene therapies and proposing a different reform on the ability for individuals to go through different gene therapies and what should be the limitations of that. This is really good for those of you that are interested in like law and want to build persuasive arguments and writing for it. And it's really nice if you want to address like real world dilemmas and situations where there is gray area between two sides. But this kind of feels abstract to some without strong case studies. So you're still going to have to rely on experts in the field, on things that have been written already, and kind of pulling things together for yourself. And it requires a bunch of heavy background research and critical thinking to it. So this is a difficult approach, but it is available to you. Last one I have for you is kind of catch-all. And what I mean by that is this is for you creative types that have joined me for 4 years and you're ready to say, I don't really want to work in a hospital or a lab, but I still love biomedical science in some way. How can I put together something that means something to me? Here you could use something visual or creative or artistic, some kind of media to communicate complex biomedical ideas to average everyday layman audiences, especially patients or families of patients. And this allows you to express yourself in a very deep way, and it makes the science accessible to the public right away. You are the person transcribing the tough science to someone who has no idea what's going to happen to their loved ones, no idea what they're getting themselves into. It's very flexible in format. You could do art, animation, podcasts, infographics. I even saw a TikTok this summer of someone who was making a complete skeleton out of crocheting. They were crocheting a skeleton. If you want to take that to the next level and talk about specific diseases and make something artistic out of that, that's fine with me too. But this is less traditional for science classes, and it's definitely not going to get you into the science fair, but it's something that's available to you. And the evaluation of this is going to be a little bit more subjective. So if you feel like I might be an unfair grader, or you're worried about getting a scholarship, this one might not be your thing. I'll remind you with these last 30 seconds of me talking for way too long here is that this is not a cumulative list, and you can combine these approaches as much as you like, approach 1 plus approach 8, etc. Work with me to figure out what it is that you really, really enjoy and what you want to do on top of what topic you are approaching for your capstone, because the two things are very important for how much fun you're going to have. That's it. I talked too long. Ask me questions.